The final shot for World War II Zombies, the last hope to salvage this controversial game mode, the chance to right the wrongs of the most hated DLC of all time. After the Tortured Path tragically destroyed the community's faith in this unique Zombies entry, things were not looking good for DLC 4. But fortunately, although serious damage had been done and players had been lost, all hope wasn't gone for World War II Zombies, and the Frozen Dawn was very much that final lifeline. Could it be pulled back from the depths one last time, or would Sledgehammer's take on this famous game mode go down as one of the most hated of all time? Although any fan would clearly tell you this entry into the franchise definitely had a lot of problems, if there is one major thing across 90% of the World War II Zombies catalogue that the devs at Sledgehammer absolutely got right, it's got to be a top level atmosphere. The only time this was ever really missing was during certain aspects of the Tortured Path. Outside of this though, a clearly defined and brilliantly created atmosphere had been present across every single experience available. From an unnerving and creepy environment in the Final Reich and the Darkest Shore, to a shift in the direction of action for the Shadowed Throne, and even a total throwback style for Groston House, which really felt like it was trying to replicate the horror of Nacta and Toten. And luckily the devs managed to transfer this brilliance over to their final chapter, the Frozen Dawn. Although things are very different this time around, as this experience definitely didn't go in the direction of horror or an attempt to creep players out. It had a much more grand and climactic feel to it. It absolutely made fans feel like they were really at the end of the world in a last-ditch attempt to save humanity. The Frozen Dawn took the one good part of DLC 3, its third map, Beneath the Ice, and expanded upon that idea in an incredible way. Giving fans a fully fleshed out underground ice cavern for a Zombies map was genius, and its atmosphere is a huge part of why it's so good. It stands in stark contrast to things like the Darkest Shore and the Shadowed Throne, as this location is quite clearly in no way inspired by a real location, well, at least not directly anyway. The fantastical nature of the Frozen Dawn's location works so well in the World War II Zombies universe because it managed to create a very epic feel beyond everything that had come before it. As amazing as things like the Final Reich were, they just wouldn't work as DLC 4. This needed to be a lot more grand and over the top. Giving players another war-torn city or zombie-infested experimentation facility as the culmination of the World War II zombie season would not have been enough. The devs needed to go all out here with a next level idea. And that is exactly what the Frozen Dawn did so well. All you have to do is look out over the edges of the map and the amazing atmosphere is there for all to see. This was literally the end of the world, the end of everything. Unless players could pull something out of the bag to protect humanity one last time. What more could you really ask for when it comes to the final DLC in a zombie season? The devs at Sledgehammer may have sadly done many things wrong with their take on the mode, but atmosphere is not one of them, and quite frankly I would say that what's present in the Frozen Dawn is right up there with the best that was ever produced by other studios, including Treyarch. It's not the only thing that the Frozen Dawn does incredibly well either, with its mythical melee weapon system being another huge positive. Many fans considered the arrival of melee weapons in the Shadowed Throne a brilliant addition, but that was essentially just stage 1 because DLC 4 took that to the next level. The tools available to fans in the Frozen Dawn were no mere axes or baseball bats. This time around, people were dealing with otherworldly creations that are up there with some of the coolest weapons in the whole series. The beauty of these weapons is that they are so different to each other, with every single one having an incredibly unique look and gameplay mechanic. If you're into heavy strikes, then go for the hammer, which can obliterate the standard undead and even take out multiple if you throw it. The scythe offers more of a sweeping attack which can destroy most things in front of you, allowing you to get yourself out of some pretty sticky situations. The Thulian shield, as you'd expect, is a little bit more defensive, but also offers the ability to take down the horde just less successfully than certain others. And then finally we have what is probably the most unique of the lot, the flail. It has some genuinely crazy abilities, with literal teleportation being one of the coolest. All players have to do is throw the orb part of the weapon and then activate it, and they will be transported to wherever they threw it in the first place. It's pretty crazy and has to be one of the most interesting things the World War II Zombies devs ever added. Not only that, but with the same weapon in the upgraded form, you can get hold of a ton of other useful abilities, including being able to essentially confuse zombies, which can of course be very useful. As I've mentioned though, some of the abilities I've spoken about are only available once you've upgraded certain weapons to their more impressive form, and that is a whole nother story when it comes to this section. And that is because, being real with you, completing certain upgrades can be very challenging, but not necessarily in a bad way. Each melee weapon has its own unique unlock puzzle and subsequent upgrade process. which truthfully can be pretty daunting at first, as it's a lot to take on, particularly if your whole squad wants to get hold of their own weapon. I won't lie, it's a lot for most people, with the vast majority of challenges being pretty full on and complicated, which understandably can put many fans off. But although a number of these puzzles and quests can be too much for some, they are at least very original and feel like they fit the aesthetic of the map perfectly. Having to find and point out various star constellations around the map is probably one of the most unique quest steps I've seen in Zombies history. Not everything manages to reach that level, sadly, with certain ones taking a page out of the Shadowed Thrones playbook requiring you to use an online puzzle solver, which is never a good thing in my eyes. But fortunately, in general, I would say these quests and upgrades are interesting and rewarding and largely very learnable. If you put the time in to understand the steps and remember how to be efficient with them, they can become second nature and make acquiring certain weapons way easier. Which is obviously very important for the Frozen Dawn, because realistically, every time you play this map, you're probably going to be picking up a few of these amazing weapons. And if there is one place you're absolutely going to be using these insane melee weapons, then it's the final climactic battle against the God King. On certain occasions, World War II Zombies really did manage to create some genuinely brilliant boss fights, with the final Reich's Panzermörder being one of the best the game has to offer. But sadly, there were also occasions when it massively missed the mark, such as the Darkest Shore and certain parts of the Tortured Path. So the real question is, did World War II Zombies manage to wrap things up with a top level final encounter that all fans expect from a great map? To put it simply, yes. Yes, it did. The climactic battle with the God King, in my opinion, is one of the best final fights that the game has to offer, possibly even better than the conclusion to the final Reich. Although definitely not perfect, it feels like the culmination of a pretty decent story told throughout the course of the DLC season, and luckily that makes the God King feel like a big deal. Obviously there are some that would say that this boss comes out of nowhere, essentially with little to no build up, but I would have to disagree with that. Although perhaps not as in your face as Dr. Straub, there were definitely certain hints and teases alluding to this creature playing a serious part in the World War II Zombies storyline, particularly in the Tortured Path. And having to undertake this challenge in a unique, previously inaccessible boss arena just makes it feel even more special. Not only that, but the fight incorporates numerous different abilities from the melee weapons you've collected and upgraded as part of the Easter egg that we'll get onto. It forces you to take on various different stages with you needing to navigate certain gameplay mechanics by using techniques you'd previously learned whilst collecting all of the incredible weapons. It's a great idea for a final encounter and works really well, making it feel like the final conclusion of a year-long narrative. Yes, over the course of Zombies history there have absolutely been many better boss fights, but as for those created outside of Treyarch Studios, I honestly think it has to be considered as one of the better ones. But way before you even have the chance to arrive at the battle with the God King, players were having to take down a brand new enemy that could only be fought on the Frozen Dawn, namely the Corpse Eater. Now you'd be forgiven for thinking that this is just another Sizzler from the Shadowed Throne, and sure there are absolutely similarities here, namely the super speed that they have, but outside of that they're actually very different. Instead of just immediately chasing down players in order to inflict damage, these things work in a slightly different way. They roam the map and essentially consume the undead in order to buff themselves up, hence the name Corpse Eater. They literally eat corpses in order to become juiced up, more powerful versions, at which time they'll full sprint after players and inflict massive damage. Even if fans manage to eliminate them, it doesn't end there though, with Corpse Eaters letting off a huge energy explosion, which can also be a major problem for players and particularly their armour. This enemy was just another example of the devs at Sledgehammer's great ability to constantly provide new foes for players that really tie extremely closely with the map they're found on. That is one of the major positives of World War II Zombies. There are just certain enemies that are remembered in close connection with the map they're found on, and that's because certain ones such as the Moislers, Sizzlers and Corpse Eaters are famous for one particular experience. And in the world of modern COD Zombies, that is not really something you see that often, and it's honestly a shame. But even with the Frozen Dawn providing all of these major positives, and with it being a genuinely brilliant experience, it doesn't have everything. It's sadly missing certain things that are needed for a COD Zombies map to be an all-timer, so let's take a look at exactly what they are. It may seem weird, but it probably feels like at this point, even though I haven't directly spoken about the Frozen Dawn's Easter egg, I've kind of covered quite a bit of it. And when I say a bit of it, I literally mean the entire thing. How, you ask? How is this possible? Well, I've talked in depth about collecting all of the melee weapons the map has to offer and of course fighting the God King. And that's it. That right there is the Easter egg, ladies and gentlemen. Even if we ignore the end boss fight and take that as its own thing, the whole of the main quest in the Frozen Dawn is getting hold of and upgrading each of the 4 wonder weapons, and sadly nothing more than that. Sure, there are other COD Zombies Easter eggs that I would talk positively about, where a huge portion of the Easter egg is unlocking and upgrading 4 wonder weapons. But normally after doing that, there are a number of other cool steps involving those items that expand the main quest and take it to the next level, but it's as if the devs just gave up here. Now, I know time constraints were really tough on Sledgehammer and budgets were stretched so thin, so it is understandable, but it doesn't make this issue any less disappointing. It's not that a main Easter egg doesn't exist in the Frozen Dawn, it's just that it doesn't offer anything special enough to be that exciting. If you're jumping in with a squad to each get your own upgraded wonder weapons, then you've literally done the whole Easter egg right there, and the fact that I can even say that is pretty dumb. It's not the map's only issue in my eyes though, although I will say this one is much smaller, no pun intended. Because yes, the size of the experience on offer with the Frozen Dawn is unfortunately not very big at all. At least not in comparison to things like the Final Reich and the Darkest Shore. I've got to be clear, what's available here in my opinion is absolutely top level, it looks incredible and plays so well. It's just a massive shame that there isn't more of it. The Shadow Throne was a similar size and also felt like some expansion could have improved it, but it didn't feel like it hampered the map as much as it does on this one. The war-torn city of Berlin, although minimalistic, worked in the way that it was presented as a small cross-section of the destroyed area, but sadly the Frozen Dawn feels like it's missing something. It's almost as if the underground caverns of Thule needed another layer or large area in order to feel complete. You arrive at the Overlook or Bloodpool area after traversing these interesting and impressive looking corridors with their own unique visuals and look out thinking, right, what's next? And there's your problem, there is no next, there's nothing more. It just leaves you with a slightly disappointed feeling that the final experience we got wasn't a little bit more in depth when it came to its play space. Even with these negatives though, there can be no doubt that the Frozen Dawn is a huge improvement over the Tortured Path, that's just obvious. But how exactly does it stack up as the final conclusion to the World War II Zombies saga? Is it a fitting end to a very unique take on this incredible game mode? As tons of players will remember, after the lowest of lows with DLC 3 The Tortured Path, there was one final chance for the World War II Zombies devs to finish things on a high. And I really believe that the Frozen Dawn managed to do that, because as a package it may not be a 10 out of 10, but it does a very good job at being one of the best things on offer in this game. There's no question that it's a massive improvement over DLC 3, I don't really think that can even be debated. However, I would say that this actually goes a little bit further than that. I truly believe that the Frozen Dawn is one of the best experiences that the World War II Zombies catalogue has to offer. I'm not going to go wild and say it manages to top the Final Reich, because that would probably be a little bit insane, but outside of that it's right up there near the top. It offers fans some awesome content with amazing wonder weapons, and atmosphere to rival the best Treyarch experiences, and a boss fight that wraps up the storyline in a satisfying way, even if it's still a huge shame that the narrative didn't get to continue in a future title. The only thing that's really missing is a top level Easter egg quest to rival the best of all time. Although of course it has one, with it just being made up of unlocking and upgrading each melee weapon, it feels totally lackluster and definitely let the map down heavily. But even with that being the case, the Frozen Dawn is all round a great Zombies experience and manages to do a brilliant job of finishing the World War II Zombies season on a high. It's the final piece in an interesting puzzle that was overlooked by many, and a DLC that warrants more positivity than it sadly gets.